Coming up on today's show.
Kind of the one that I see a lot, almost every house, is that we make the mistake of allowing dissimilar items to get mixed together.
Now, were there any other surprises that you found during this process?
We tend to think that, my life might be very different from a 16-year-old's or a college student's or a retiree, but really it's not.
How to store and organize everyday or common items. Part 2, today on Keeping You Organized. Well, hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. This is not going to just be your everyday show, although today we're going to talk about organizing and storing everyday and common items. If you missed our first part of this show, you can go back and look at our last episode of the podcast. But we're bringing back on Shauna Turner from the Shauna Method. And Shauna, welcome back to Keeping You Organized.
Thanks very much. It's great to be with you. I love talking about organizing stuff.
All right. Well, just in a quick overview of what we did last time, we started this concept of talking about how to organize and store everyday and common items. We talked about the light bulb last time, and I know that you did this series on YouTube, which we'll link up in our show notes as well, where you took 30 different days and kind of gave tips and talked about different items. And last time, we also kind of were wrapping up with kind of some of these general principles that people would use and learn across not only regular everyday items, but probably in all organizing kinds of situations. Let's just review that a little bit, kind of tell us what we covered, and then we'll move on to maybe some of the mistakes that people make with everyday items.
Right, so we were talking about a few principles that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to organize your belongings. The first one is that you want to make sure that you assign a dedicated storage location for everything, even small things. We want to decide in advance, where will this live when it is away, right? So that was kind of number one. Second principle was to bear in mind that we want to kind of match the size of our storage location to the items that we're going to store inside it. So if we have teeny tiny things, we want them to be in a smaller either container or a smaller shelf. We don't want to throw small things loose into a large space. That's kind of a recipe for disaster. And then third, in order to do that, we may need to add a little structure. Maybe we need to add some files so that our papers don't get mixed together, or we need to add some dividers, or a little bit of maybe a smaller bin that goes into a drawer in order to keep like items together.
Great.
So those are a few things to keep in mind, and then always helpful to throw a label on things.
Well, wonderful. Well, let's move now into, I'm sure, not only in your regular organizing business, but through this series that you did, mistakes, common mistakes, because people, sometimes those are the best tips, learn from other people's mistakes, not your own. So what are some of the mistakes that people make when dealing with common and everyday items like these?
Right. And, I always like to start this by saying there's never any judgment here, right? Everybody's busy. We're trying to live our lives. We're trying to get through the day. So these are just some things to be aware of, because then maybe you can make a change. So kind of the one that I see a lot, almost every house, is that we make the mistake of allowing dissimilar items to get mixed together. We don't sort of separate things quite enough. So maybe we have a drawer in the kitchen and we call it the junk drawer or the supplies drawer, but inside of that drawer we have a vast array of things and they're all mixing together. Or maybe we say that's just going to be, the floor of the closet is going to be where I keep shoes, right? And then we just throw them in loosely. They all get mixed together. Maybe boots do, and then a belt falls off of a hook and it's suddenly on the floor. So we want to try to keep items a little bit more distinct than we might think we need to. The more separated they are, the better chance we have of putting something back where it belongs. And because of that, the better shot we have of being able to quickly find it when we want it, which is the goal of being organized in the first place.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple examples, specific items maybe that are common that this happens to.
Right. So maybe if you think about you're in the bathroom and you have different kinds of things in the bathroom. Well, let's not throw all of our makeup and our medicine and maybe, hair bands and the curling iron all loose into the drawer. Let's set up some different spaces for that. Maybe the medicines we'll keep out and we'll put in the medicine cabinet, or we'll put those in a clear shoebox on the shelf in the linen closet. And then for makeup, we're going to keep that separate as well. And even within the makeup, we're going to try to have the lip pencils and lipsticks separate from the eye pencils, and maybe that's separate from where we're going to keep powders, right? So we want to have designated compartments for these like items to stay, and then a little structure to keep them that way. And then cleaning supplies would be a whole different category. In addition, paper supplies, so the extra toilet paper and tissues, where are those going to live? We want to make these categories distinct and decide where each of these things will live.
Now, were there any other surprises that you found during this process?
Other common mistakes that
common mistakes, yep.
Yeah. So the other mistake that I see a lot is that we tend to be a little inconsistent on where we keep things. So maybe, and this often happens in multiple family households. One person buys a blister pack of batteries and sticks it on the workbench out in the garage, and another person has some batteries that they keep in a drawer in the pantry, and then another person, maybe a child, opens up a pack and throws the extras loose into a drawer. So now we have sort of the same item, but it's scattered about, and we can't quite remember, where did I put that? Or where should I go to even look for that? Or do I have it, or do I need to buy it? I can't quite remember. So to the extent that we can always put something back in the same place every time, that helps us find it easier. It helps us become aware when we need to maybe buy a new one. And it makes us a little less likely to lose track of something.
Oh, that's great. Now, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, I bet there are things that people think they don't need to store, and we'll kind of delve into that, things that don't need to be organized or stored. So we're with Shauna Turner, the Shauna Method, talking about how to organize and store common and everyday items, and we'll be right back.
Now there's a place just for you. Life can be busy, and you still have to keep it all together. That's why you like to be organized and in control. Introducing MyOrganized.life, a special place where you can get ideas and solutions to organize what's important to you, your important papers, your important decisions, your important life events. We show you the ideas and products to stay organized in your life. See what's new. Stop by and say hello. Visit us at any time at www.myorganized.life. It's just for you. MyOrganized.life by Smead. Find us at www.myorganized.life. MyOrganized.life.
We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about how to store and organize everyday and common items. Just things that you would normally not think about organizing because they're just really common. That's the only way I can describe it. We're with Shauna Turner from the Shauna Method. And Shauna, before the break, I kind of teased this idea. There's probably some items that people think, well, I don't need to organize that, right? I mean, how do you, like dirty clothes or something like that, you know? How would you go about, or I mean, what did you find in your 30-day adventure on this?
Well, the first thing is really just to become aware that maybe there are some things that if I were a little intentional about figuring out where I'm going to put them, that would help a lot. So take your example, the dirty clothes. We did a day on dirty clothes. Now, who thinks about storing dirty clothes, right? You don't think you're storing dirty clothes, but you actually do need a system in place for where the clothes are going to go at all stages of the continuum. So, of course, the obvious is the clean clothes. Are we going to put them in drawers or in a closet? And we did a couple of days on, some options for the clean clothes. But then there's this sort of gray area of dirty clothes. And where do they go? Do they go in a hamper? Where should the hamper be? Do I need to put them in a sorter? And where's the best place to keep that? And then how about maybe that pair of sweatpants that I tend to just pull on in the morning and for an hour, and they're not really dirty, but I don't really want to fold them back up and put them in with my clean clothes. So what do I do with those? Or how about my teenager who tries on a piece of clothing and decides, nope, and just tosses it on the floor? What do I do about that? So it is actually good to think this through. Where am I going to keep the items from clean all the way through to the laundry and then back to clean again?
Okay, so I've got one. How do you get a teenager to deal with their dirty clothes? Or was that part of the series or not?
So that could be a whole series unto itself, dealing with the teenagers. But I did touch on this because this is so common, and teenagers are busy. And where their clothes are is kind of very low on their priority list. They're thinking about their activities and their sports and their grades and how they look and what someone said in the lunchroom. And, they're busy. They have a lot going on and they don't really care. So I say, look, to keep peace in the house, number one is safety first. If they have clothes all over the floor, they must follow this rule, and that is there must be a clean path from the bed to the door, because I don't want anything. If there were to be a fire, I don't want a child getting tangled up in stuff. They always need to have a clear path. That's number one. Number two is if they need to have a hamper or a place where the dirty clothes go. So I would say to my teenage daughter, look, if you dump your clothes on the floor because you tried on the shirt and you don't want to wear it to the party, but it's still clean, then don't put it in the hamper. But if it's dirty, if you kind of leave it there and it's dirty and you want it washed, it needs to go in the hamper. Right. And then the third thing I would say is get your teens doing their own laundry as soon as you can, because nothing is more frustrating to a mom to be cleaning laundry and walk in and see it all over the floor.
Yes. Well, yeah, and getting your teens to do the laundry is another podcast. I mean, we have lots of future show ideas here as well, but anything else that you were surprised about going through this series or learned about organizing and storing common items?
I was just a little surprised at how common our lives really are, how similar we are. We tend to think that, my life might be very different from a 16-year-old's or a college student's or a retiree, but really it's not. There are basic things. We all have food. We all have clothing. We all need medical supplies. Hopefully we all have a few tools around, like a rake or an umbrella. And so if you can apply these common principles and establish a home for these everyday items, it makes it so much easier to deal with the random and the extra things that come in. So keeping the everyday items well organized kind of decompresses a little stress, so that if you have to deal with something that you inherit or a move or other things, you're able to sort of process that better because the basics are in place.
Wow, these are great tips, Shauna. Before we go, can you just let people know how to get a hold of you and the kinds of services that your company provides?
My company offers in-home and in-office and virtual organizing services to help you organize time, space, and belongings. And anyone can find me at my website, www.theshaunamethod.com.
Great. And then is on your website, I'm assuming this series is also linked as well?
That's right. So you can go right to my YouTube channel, or you can pop over to the website and find it on the blog.
Great. And we'll include those things in our show notes as well. Well, thanks again, Shauna. Another great tip-filled episode.
Great to be with you.
Okay, well, there you have it, folks. Now you should have no excuses. Those everyday and common items, now you know how to organize and store them. If you're struggling with that, you can always give someone like Shauna a call as well. And join us next time for Keeping You Organized.